Now, over the past few months, there has been a resurgence of cash and transit heists and opportunist crimes in the country. Just yesterday, a cash and transit heist took place near Xavier Road in Johannesburg. The police are embarking on concerted efforts to combat the incidents. But SAPS and crime intelligence adequately prepared? Of course, that's the big question. Are they adequately prepared? A Unisa crime researcher who focuses on cash and transit heists, Thabang Bogopa, weighs in. Thabang, a very good morning to you. Welcome to Newzroom Afrika. Since October of 2022, we've seen a steady increase of these types of incidents of cash and transit heists in the country. What is your take as we take a look at the spike and the continued escalation?
Thank you so much and good morning to the viewers. Firstly, let me just take a stance from the broken window theory, which stipulates that as long as there is a high level of criminality which is unaccounted for, more people will become interested in doing that crime. And looking at the amount of money involved in cash in transit heists, it's so high. So, firstly, the lack of enterprise risk management in this field. I just want to give you a very blank example which everyone will understand. You'll find a CIT car driving on the N1, N12, N9, carrying perhaps, let's just estimate, 20 million, with only one driver and one security. The one security will be maybe holding a pistol, which is having 15 bullets only. The driver is obviously limited to defend himself because he'll be driving. That on its own, it's very poor enterprise risk management practices. So that tells you that it is highly likely for anyone to try it and get away. Although they do get arrested, if you go to all the high courts in the country, you are going to have a lot of big CIT cases being on trial. So that on its own tells people that it's at least doable, because the young criminals see people doing it on the scene and getting away.
Yeah.
However, we need to praise the South African Police Service for what they've been doing. They've really been cracking these cases and they've been arresting these criminals. However, the only challenge is that the other problem is emanating from prison. When people are in prison, they talk and they discuss various issues. One of the issues they discuss is the fact that the common thing is that I have millions outside, and you'll see them living a lavish lifestyle in prison. So whoever gets bail or is going on parole, the first thing they want to do is to join the nearest gang of CIT heists so that they also can have that financial masculinity.
Yes. Looking, Thabang, you make a very important point when you talk about the imbalance, the ratios there. Two people in the vehicle. And, of course, we know that large groups of more than 15 perpetrators are attacking these vehicles. They're armed with high-caliber firearms and traveling with high-performance vehicles, which really speaks to an imbalance and how much more needs to be done. How much more could be done to ensure that there are at least some preventative measures?
Yeah, so what should be done is that if you check, without naming and shaming, it's not all the CIT companies which are mostly targeted. You'd find that only this week, it's only 2 companies that have been targeted. Of all the, I think, 6 very big cash in transit companies. The question is, what are the others doing? Because you find other cash in transit transporting cars, they have the main vehicle which is transporting the bulk amount of money. They have one car at the front with highly armed security. They have another one behind with highly armed, highly trained security. So criminals don't even take chances there. They allow the cars to pass and deliver the money where they must peacefully. Then you have these other companies whereby the car is only one with a very old or a very not well-trained security official, and that's a loophole, or that's a weakness. That's a security weakness on its own. So what should be done is that the security company should have a particular standard in terms of what I mentioned earlier, that the enterprise risk management, which is by law supposed to be monitored by SAPS. The South African Police Services at the cluster and provincial and national level should monitor that whenever these vehicles are transporting this money, because they introduce risk to our communities. What are they doing to mitigate this risk up front? And should they be found to have not complied, then this will be the mandate of the Private Security Industry Regulating Authority, that they should be penalized heavily for having induced the risk and exposing normal citizens to that risk. And another thing, if you check the malls, particularly in Gauteng, I've seen there's certain specific malls which says no CIT cover allowed here. So what that means is there are specific high security points whereby money should be dropped. You check the CIT heist that happened in KZN. The car was just parking in a normal average parking where people are passing, where kids are passing, and elder people are just there. So that was a very wrong way of delivering money, because you are actually exposing normal customers and normal consumers to the risk. However, the malls should also have, in as much as they have dedicated delivery points for whatever merchandise, there should be dedicated delivery areas for transporting and offloading the money. And in that way, those areas should have high security, and there will be very minimal chances. And here I'm talking about what we normally call cross-pavement CIT heist, whereby they wait for the security guy to disembark from the vehicle, and then they take advantage of that witness. So if it is in that dedicated high security area, little could ever happen there. Yeah. So those are some of the measures that could be taken. However, we also encourage the South African Police Service to do more covert operations. I've seen the Operation Chanela, how it is working, but the reality is that in order to curb these criminals, some of the operations should be undercover. You can't publish everything that you are doing, or else they will know your steps ahead of you. So you need more undercover operations to curb and also to overcome this criminal syndicate.
You speak about the risk of communities being exposed to these crimes. We also know that there have been warnings that have been echoed towards community members who rush to loot the CIT robbery crime scene, saying that that in itself is also a great concern, because they are essentially also committing a crime.
Yes, by basic definitions of criminal law, they are actually accessories after the fact. It means you find someone beating someone, and then after they've beat that person, you come and you do the last clap. You've also committed assault. So people come and rob a CIT vehicle. Robbery is the inducement of the force and the theft. So you are actually just doing the theft part of the robbery. So you are actually part of that robbery. After they've taken their part, you also stole money from that CIT crime scene. So we've seen a lot of innocent people, presumably innocent, being arrested. And actually, beyond a reasonable doubt, you have actually stolen money from the CIT heist. And some of them, they leave their fingerprints there. And what's now trending, particularly in Gauteng, is that whenever it happens, because it happens mostly nearby the community, there will be people who are zooming and live on social media. And those people, by law, they are now competent and compellable witnesses. So you find that someone from the community is now being charged and being trialed with strangers that he doesn't know, for the mere fact that after they've stolen, you went and took your 1,000. But you are actually also part of those who deserve to be convicted for that crime.
We see that these incidents tend to spike as we head towards the festive season. Is there any sort of reason why that happens?
Yes, let me cite the study by a senior lecturer at Unisa, Dr. Tobani, who mentions something that's called a criminal career. Now, in this offender's profile, you realize that there's people who are actually relying on crime to sustain other businesses or to sustain their main livelihood. For example, the 50-year-old who was recently arrested and other high-profile people who are arrested, you'll find that now it's nearing the end of the year, university fees, parents must pay university fees. Some of these people, when you profile them, you realize that they have 2 or 3 kids who are at university, they want to pay, and they want that quick money. And some of them, they annually do it. They only do it towards the end of the year, and then during the year, they are busy with their businesses. So if the businesses didn't make enough money, they resort to that criminal activity. And that's what's creating the spike. But now, because everyone wants to have money, people have been trying this and that, and it hasn't perhaps manifested as they wished. Now they want to try and have money. But the reality is that they daily get arrested. They daily get arrested. And another issue which we must mention is that most of these intelligent operations are not covered on media. So people think that because they haven't seen people being arrested, people are not being arrested. People are being arrested and people are being trialed. Most are also being convicted for these criminal activities.
The contributors to the violent nature of these crimes, we're seeing more and more that they're becoming more violent with the use of high caliber firearms. Is there anything to make of that, especially also considering how others that I've spoken to have spoken about the easy access to firearms also being a factor?
Yes. Okay. Let's look at the areas where these criminal activities happen. You have your commercial area in KZN, whereby beside the CIT heist, it has a nature of high criminal culture. Your Inkabis, your hitmen, whereby there's still a lot of firearms unaccounted for. Even when we moved into our democracy, there were a lot of, I would say, security companies or security groupings which never surrendered their firearms and they were never incorporated into the lawful law enforcement agencies. So there's still a high volume of firearms. And now you go to your Limpopo towards the Mozambique and the Zimbabwe borders. That's where you find a 13-year-old crossing from Zimbabwe with a AK-47. You can see the amount of arrests that are happening in the buses that are traveling from Zimbabwe, that those people are carrying high caliber firearms and they are carrying massive explosives. So those nearby countries have a lot of firearms that are unaccounted for. You know that an AK-47 is not in supply in South Africa and it's actually unlawful and prohibited. But in our outer nearby countries, they have massive access to those firearms. So that's one of the main contributing factors. And it is also proven by the profiles that you'll find that out of a syndicate of 15, you have maybe the main ones who were tasked to shoot are not even South African. You're from Botswana, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and Swaziland. Those are people who had access to the mandatory military training from a very young age.
And very quickly, we saw a female driver being roped in here, hijacked and kidnapped as a getaway vehicle. Hers was used by these criminals. Any sort of warnings, perhaps, or some measures that those who may be witnessing a cash and transit crime happening, what do you advise? What do people do?
Yes. Please stay away from these criminal activities. That's the first one. Secondly, I know there's people who have developed the culture which is why we are saying these criminal activities happen where there's a high crime culture. So people can just park 5 meters, wait for it to happen, and when the criminals walk away, they then join. That's what we've seen in especially KZN and Gauteng. So that is not safe, because should you want to go near to the cash in transit heist, we've seen on the N9 recently, people were just less than 10 meters when the criminals were actually taking the money. But should your car be of preference or of high performance for them, then they are likely going to take your car. Or should the getaway driver be delayed, they won't sit there and wait for the getaway driver. They are going to try and get whichever car that's nearby so that they can get away and then communicate better and get their other cars. And they've said part, if they don't burn the car, they actually just dump it. But often they dump it and burn your car. So you are likely never to recover that car. But what we want to encourage the community, this trend of wanting to get as close as possible to the cash in transit for two purposes. One, for trending on social media and taking videos. The second one, for taking whatever cash that's left. It's a very unsafe practice, and we encourage our communities to at least stay away from that.
Yeah, thank you very much. We're going to have to leave it there for now. Unisa crime researcher with a focus on cash and transit crimes. Thabang Bogopa, they're giving us a sense of what the space is looking like, and of course some warnings to community members who may become accessories of the crime.